Why, oh why me? What happened? How did it happen? Welcome all, I'm Aspie. I'm all about creating mental health and awareness and sharing my life stories with especially the syndrome, OCD and the like. And as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about how to deal with some negative emotions as part of a series for you all based on mental health and body positivity to hopefully educate you all on this, and hopefully we can learn something along the way between us. So this one's obviously is going to be about how to deal with grief and loss, and hopefully you're liking some of these series that I'm producing right now or sharing with you all, shall we say. And in this case, if you do, smash that like or even comment below just to let me know about this, or just maybe put it as a suggestion below also what you would like to see, even though just a heads up that as promised I was hoping to do some more of the narcissist and psychopathic series. This one's going to be taking a bit longer than expected, but as you know, due to that reasoning behind it is due to a lot of research that has to be done with this, along with some many other topics that I want to share with you all, because you know I'm all about mental health and awareness and sharing what's on my mind and heart to encourage you all, support you all regardless what you guys are going through. So let's begin this series of how to cope or how to handle negative emotions, especially this one right now. So how to handle with grief or cope with grief and loss. Like the many questions people want to know about is, what is grief? Grief is like defined as, or it's just a thought, feeling and reactions we experience when we face with a change or loss in our life, regardless what it may be. Classic examples here would be loss of a loved one, you obviously the changes in your relationship status quo, or a main important one might be unemployment, redundancy, you're moving from town to town basically. Another common one would be abuse or a personality change, such as your illness, your sickness, brain injury, whatever it may be. How do we grieve? Well, that's a good question that people will ask ourselves. We need to ask ourselves that. It all depends on us, obviously, and it's up to us how we grieve. Basically, as I said, grief is the reactions and thoughts we have associated with the loss or change that we have experienced, regardless what it may be. Therefore, we've got to remember that when it comes down to the grieving process, not everyone is the same in how we grieve, as well as these, thoughts and processes and reactions will differ from person to person, however, through this grief. The grief process is affected by many factors, however, age, gender, values, culture, personality, resilience, regardless what it may be. So I'm going to just talk more about this right now, or just briefly. So the culture and grief settings, you've got to remember not to underestimate culture and its influences, as well as also being in mind that with this, that different cultures have different means of grieving stages. Here's a classic one example is for people in the community of being a Māori. They obviously have a tangi, which is a Māori word for a Māori funeral, which this can last up to maybe 3 days to a week of their grieving process of their loved ones, regardless of who what they are. Obviously, just got to remember to also be aware of our own cultural assumptions about grief, because they can affect many other terms of events through it all. We need to listen in order to establish what is normal for people around, as well as their own everyday culture. Individuals are shaped by their culture, however, but they aren't determined by it. For example, the Kiwi bloke wants to cry, but big boys have that mentality of big boys shouldn't cry over spilt milk, and it's usually a sign of weakness, which this stigma or stereotyping needs to be stopped, even though it's slowly getting stopped right now based on the everyday things of mental health coming into effect and whatever it may be. What the client wants to do to what the client's cultural norms and expectations are will vary from person to person, yet again, as mentioned. Got to bear in mind, religion is cultural, but it is not culture. What I mean here, even though certain religions believe in, the upper hand of the higher mighty, the man upstairs, or whatever you want to call it, some might believe in the Allah and whatnot. But then you got to remember also, religion and culture is a form of interaction. For example, funeral rites and emotions expressed will differ from every culture. As mentioned earlier, the Kiwi bloke culture may appear stiff and lack of emotion at a funeral compared to emotions expressed at a Tangi or a Māori funeral. Ethnicity and culture. The same is true here for religion. Ethnicity is part of culture, but it's not everything. For example, from a previous manager or from a lecturer of mine that I had in the past, maybe in the lead up of my studies. Just to note though, don't assume an individual identifies with only one culture. Family heritage and culture may run strong in the everyday individuals as well. Basically, you can't really assume anything, so you need to be patient, listen actively as, waves of emotion, the highs and lows of the waves, Some may define it as a fingerprint, some may just define it as an everyday roller coaster, however. So some of the common features of grief, like the emotional responses side of it, would be shock, anger, guilt, resentment, unjust, shame, relief, emptiness. And then on the other side of the coin is your physical responses, which is fatigue, crying, you're feeling distracted, or you got a lot of distractions going on, you got a low immunity, so you're becoming really sick most of the time. Your mood tends to change, so you end up snapping at everybody. You have certain issues with your digestion tract. You feel maybe relief and vulnerable. Another one for the common features of grief is your thinking responses, which is your concentration. Some of your doubts maybe will start clouding in, your negativity of your self-thoughts, of those negatives. You may start to question yourself, why me, and all these other questions. You start to blame yourself maybe, or blame the situation that happened. Here's a classic example. Many people may blame that, if they were involved in a car accident, they'll take up the blame for themselves and not for maybe what actually did cause that car accident in the first place. The indecision, your night terrors or nightmares, and sometimes keeping themselves busy. On the other hand, is your social responses. Talk or lack of talking, confusion, you're sensitive all the time when this is happening. Sometimes some people will deal with grief as aggression or anger, seeking attention, affection, you're questioning the why me of something again, or why it's not happening, how it's happening, and everything else. Maybe some people will have a renewed faith and belief patterns in this sense of the spiritual. They're praying, they feel that maybe it's a punishment by God or the Alpha Omega, sensing the deceased's presence while they're dead. The feeling of guilt and blame will take into place in spiritual alignment. Most of all, we know that grief is exhausting. Don't we all know this? We don't know how grief will hit us though, and when it will hit us. How we will feel, cope, deal with it, and we certainly don't know when it will be over. So, as I said, grieving process will take time. Grief can be especially exhausting if someone doesn't know how to grieve and what is helpful to them or for them. Basically, you don't know what's coming until something causes you to grieve. These certain change of events, be it a death of a family, we can come out on the other side. Okay, grief is a process, but before that, though, we need to remember how grief affects us. As I said, people will react to it differently in the way of this loss. There could be anxiety and helplessness that usually often come first, and then your anger is quite common, including feeling angry at someone who has died for leaving them behind. Sadness usually often comes later, but like I said, it comes in a process and a cycle, which I'll express soon. Some people may, think knowing that these are common may help them seem more normal than others. It's also important to know that this will eventually pass. Some people take longer than others to recover. Some may need help from a counsellor, therapist, or even a medical professional of some kind in that medical field, but you will eventually come to terms with your loss and the intense feelings will eventually subside. How to deal with grief and loss. Obviously, there's no instant fix or cure, not a magic snap of the fingers saying, hey, abracadabra, stop crying or whatever. You might feel affected every day for about a year to 18 months if they're a major loss, depending on what you would define as a major loss versus whatever, as I said before, of the definition. But after this time, the grief is less likely to be at the forefront of your mind. There are practical things you can do to get through this time of bereavement or loss, and they are expressing yourself. I know that many people may not want to talk about their feelings and emotions, about how they go about it. Talking is often usually a good way to soothe painful emotions, so finding someone to talk to can start the healing process. Allowing yourself to feel sad, it's a healthy part of the grieving process, apparently. And feelings and emotions, we need to do it in a right way, of form of mentality, and that keeping our routine up. Keeping up simple things like walking the dog can help, or keeping ourselves busy, or even just listening to music or whatever it may be that we used to do in a routine pattern, regardless what it may be. Sleep. Emotional strain can make you feel very tired, as I said, and very exhausted. If you're having trouble sleeping, you may need to seek out to go and see your GP. Eating healthily. A healthy, well-balanced diet will help you to cope. Avoiding things that will numb the pain, such as alcohol, drugs, it will make you feel worse once the numbers wears off. And last but not least, go to see a counsellor if that feels right for you. Not always, but perhaps not straight away. Counselling may be more useful after a couple of weeks or even months. Only you will know when you are ready to take that step to seek help for that. As I said before, grief has a process. Time itself may not heal. It's what you do at that time that passes that will count. Avoiding grief, changes in adaptation. There might be a change in your routine, daily life, your personality. This is a lot to adjust to, and none of this happens overnight, as mentioned. It's not a quick fix with the snap of the fingers. Grief will equal to change, and therefore takes time to process. Although there is no one way to grieve, however, just to bear in mind, there exists a guideline to common stages people may go through when grieving. Number 1, shock and confusion. 2, depression and loneliness. 3, physical symptoms. 4, panic to reality. Okay, as I said before, there is some stages of grief, which is the 5 stages, which are denial is number 1, 2, anger, 3, bargaining, 4, depression, and 5, acceptance. Denial is obviously, you may be saying this can't be happening to me, and anger is why is this happening to me, who is to blame. You may end up blaming the situation or yourself, or even your friend that you lost in a car accident is a classic example. Bargaining, make this not happen, and in return I will ... insert what you want to do as a bargainer. 4, depression, I'm too sad to do anything. 5, acceptance, I'm at peace with what happened. So in these stages, I'll briefly share it with you now. Number 1 is denial. Denial is obviously the first 5 of the 5 stages of grief. This will help us to survive the loss. In this stage, the world seems to become meaningless and seems so overwhelming for us, and we tend to not make sense of life, regardless what it may be. We're in a state of shock or denial. We will eventually go numb. We wonder how we can go on, if we can go on, why we should go on. We try to find ways to simply get through each day. Denial and shock help us to cope with and make survival possible, hence the survival mechanisms of the fight, flight, fright responses. Denial helps us to pace ourselves of our feelings of grief. This is a grace in denial. It's nature's way of letting in only as much as we can handle, however. As you accept the reality of the loss of something, be it like a loss of a job or a person that you loved, and start to begin asking yourself some questions, you are unknowingly beginning the healing process. You are becoming stronger than you realize, and the denial is beginning to fade away as you proceed. All these feelings of denying will begin to surface. Number 2, anger. Anger is just a stage of the healing process. Be willing to feel your anger. Even though it may seem endless, the more you truly feel it, the more it will begin to dissipate, and the more you will heal. There are many other emotions under anger, and you will get to them in time, but anger is an emotion, just to bear in mind, we are most used to managing. The truth is that anger has no limits and boundaries and expectations. It can extend not only to your friends, the doctors, your family, yourself, or your loved one who died, but also to the higher mighty, as I mentioned. You may ask yourself, where is God in all this? Underneath all this anger is pain. Your emotional pain, physical pain, or whatever. It is natural to feel deserted and abandoned, but we live in a society that fears anger. Anger is a strength. and it can be an anchor, giving temporary structure to the nothingness of loss. At first, grief feels like being lost at sea, no connection to anything or anyone. Then you get angry at someone, maybe a person who didn't intend the favor, maybe a person who isn't around, maybe a person who is different, not now that your loved one has died. Suddenly, you have a structure, your anger towards them. The anger becomes a bridge of, over the open sea, a collection from you to them. It's something to hold on to, and a connection made from the strength of anger feels better than nothing. We usually know more about suppressing anger than actually feeling it. However, the anger is just another indication of the intensity of your love. Number 3, bargaining. Before loss, it seems like you will do anything if your loved one would be spared. Please, God, you bargain. I will never be angry at my wife again, as a classic example, if you'll just let her live. After a loss, bargaining may take the form of a temporary truce. What if I devote the rest of my life to helping others? Then can I wake up and realize this has all been a bad dream, a nightmare. We become lost in a maze of if only what if statements. We want life to return as normal as possible to the way it was. We want our loved one to be restored. We want to go back in time, find the tumour sooner, recognise the illness more quickly, stop the accident from happening. If only starts accumulating in our minds, as well as the what if statements. Guilt is often a bargaining's companion, however. The if onlys cause us to find the fault in ourselves and what we think we could have done differently. We may even bargain with the pain. We will do anything not to feel the pain of this loss. We remain in the past, trying to negotiate our way out of this hurt. People often think of the stages as lasting weeks or months. They forget the stages are responses to feelings that can last for only minutes or hours as we flip in and out of them, or one or the other. We don't enter and leave in each individual stage in a linear fashion. We may only feel one, then another, and back again to the first one. Number 4, depression. After bargaining, our attention moves squarely into the present. Empty feelings present themselves, and grief enters our lives on a deeper level, deeper than we ever can imagine. This depressive stage feels as though it will last forever. It's important to understand that depression is not a sign of mental illness. It is the appropriate response to a great loss. We withdraw from life, left in a fog of intense sadness, wondering perhaps if there is any point on going alone. Why go on at all? Depression after loss is too often seen as unnatural, a state to be fixed, something to snap out of, which many people tend to do. The first question to ask ourselves is whether or not the situation we're in is actually depressing. The loss of a loved one is a very depressing situation, and depression is a normal and appropriate response to this. To not experience depression after a loved one dies, however, would seem unusual and feel unusual. When a loss fully settles into your soul, the realization that your loved one didn't even get better through that time period when they were really sick and isn't coming back is understandably depressing. If grief is a process of healing, then depression is one of these many necessary steps along the way of the 5 steps. Number 5, acceptance. Acceptance is often confused with the notion of being alright or okay with what has happened. This isn't always the case, however. Most people don't always feel okay or alright after the loss of a loved one. They'll seem to cover it up or just mask it up. This stage is about accepting the reality that our loved one is physically gone and recognizing that this new reality is the permanent reality. We never like this reality or make it okay, but eventually we do begin to accept it. We learn to live with it. It is the new norm with which we must learn to live. We must try to live in the now, in a world where our loved one is missing. In resisting to this new norm, at first many people will want to maintain a life as it was before their loved one died. In time, through bits and pieces of acceptance, however, we see that we cannot maintain the past intact. It has been forever changed, and we must need to readjust. We must learn to recognize roles, reassign them to others, to take them on ourselves. Finding acceptance, maybe just having more good days than bad ones, as I mentioned, as we begin to live again and enjoy our love. We often feel like doing so, we are betraying our loved one. We can never replace what has been lost, however, but we can make new connections, new meaningful relationships, new interdependencies. Instead of denying our own feelings, we listen to our own needs. We move on, we change, we grow, we evolve. We may start to reach out to others and become involved in their own lives. We invest in our friendships and our relationships with ourselves and others around us. We begin to live again, but we cannot do so until we have given the time to grieve. If you're experiencing any of these emotions as listed following a loss, it may help to know that your action is not natural and normal, and that you will eventually heal in time. However, not everyone who grieves goes through all these stages, as I mentioned, and that sure is okay. Contrary to the belief, though, you don't have to go through each stage in order to heal. In fact, some people resolve their grief without going through any of these stages. And if you do go through these stages of grief, you probably won't experience them in a neat sequential order. So don't worry about what you should be feeling or which stage you should be supposed to be in. Okay, there are some symptoms of grief, as I mentioned. While loss affects people in different ways, many of us experience the following symptoms when we're grieving. Just remember that almost anything that we experience in the early stages of grief is normal. Clearly feeling you're going crazy, feeling like you're in a bad dream, or questioning your religious or spiritual beliefs. Shock and disbelief. Right after a loss, it can be hard to accept what happened. You may feel numb. You have trouble believing that the loss really has happened, or even deny the truth of it all. If someone you love has died, you may keep expecting them to show up at the door, even though you know they're gone for good. Sadness. Profound sadness is probably the most universal experienced symptom of grief. You may have feelings of emptiness, despair, yearning, or deep loneliness. You may also cry a lot or feel emotionally unstable. Guilt. You may regret or feel guilty about the things you did or didn't say or do. You may also feel guilty about certain feelings. Example, feeling relieved when the person died after a long, difficult illness. After death, you may even feel guilty not doing something to prevent the death, even if it was something you have done. Right, next one is, as I said before, avoidance. The questions I want to ask you is, for these stages, is, has anyone managed to avoid, ignore, deny grief successfully? Make a bet with me for coffee and chocolate if you can successfully avoid, ignore, deny grief. Just to think. And the question I want to ask you for yourselves to think about and maybe brainstorm for yourself is, what might an escape from grief look like to you? What behaviors are associated with this? Escaping grief could mean becoming ill, depression, aggression, violence, suicidal thoughts, poor relationships, anxiety and fear, panic, low self-esteem, such as alcohol, sex, drugs, food, work, and risk-taking. Dealing with grief. Talking can help by feeling supported. You feel that you're relieved, you've got the weight off your shoulders, you can identify your feelings. You can consider your options through this. You can find more help and resources, release the tension. In other words, also when dealing with grief, basically, you can turn to a loved one or a friend or family you can trust. Now is the time, obviously, to lean on the people who cares about you, even if you take pride in being strong and self-sufficient and want to do things alone. Rather than avoiding them, draw friends and loved ones close to you, spend time together face-to-face, and accept this assistance that has been offered. Oftentimes, though, people want to help but don't know how, so tell them what you need, whether it's a shoulder to cry on, help with funeral arrangements, or just someone to hang out with. If you don't feel like you have anyone you can regularly connect to face-to-face, it's never too late to build new friendships along the way. Draw comfort from your faith. If you follow a religious tradition, embrace the comfort its morning rituals can provide. Spiritual activities that are meaningful to you, such as praying, meditating, or going to the church, can offer solace. If you're questioning your faith in the wake of the loss, talk to a clergy member or any members in your religious community. Join a support group. Grief can feel very lonely, even when you have loved ones around. Sharing your sorrow with others who have experienced similar losses can help. To find a bereavement support group in your area, contact local hospitals, hospices, funeral homes, and counselling centres. Or hopefully I'll list some of the resources below in the description. That's here in New Zealand. Talk to a therapist or grief counsellor. If your grief feels like too much to bear, call a mental health professional with experience in grief counselling. An experienced therapist can help you work through these intense emotions and overcome obstacles to your grieving. Using social media for support. Memorial pages on Facebook and other social media sites have become more popular ways to inform a wide audience of a loved one's passing and to reach out for support, as well as allowing you to impart practical information such as funeral plans. These pages allow your friends and loved ones to post their own tributes or condolences. Reading such messages can often provide some comfort for those grieving the loss. Of course, posting sensitive content on social media has its risks as well, however. Memorial pages are often open to anyone with a Facebook account. This may encourage people who hardly knew the deceased to post well-meaning but inappropriate comments or advice. Worse still, memorial pages can also attract internet trolls. There have been many well-publicised cases of strangers posting cruel or abusive messages on Facebook on these pages. To gain some protection, you can opt out to create a closed group on Facebook rather than a public page, which means people have to approve by a group member before they can access the memorial. It's also important to remember that while social media can also be a useful tool for reaching out to others, it can't replace that face-to-face interaction you have and the support you need full-time. Taking care of yourself. When you're grieving, it's more important than to take care of yourself. The stress of a major loss can quickly deplete your energy and emotional reserves. Looking after your physical and emotional needs will help you get through this difficult time. Facing your feelings. You can try to suppress your grief, but you can't avoid it forever, however. In order to heal, you have to acknowledge the pain, try to avoid the feelings of sadness and loss. Only prolongs the grieving process. Unresolved grief can also lead to complications such as depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and health problems. Express your feelings in a tangible and creative way. Write about your loss in a journal. If you lost a loved one, write a letter saying the things you never got to say. Make a scrapbook or photo of others celebrating the person's life, or get involved in a cause or organisation that was important to your loved one. Look after your physical health. The mind and body are connected. When you feel healthy physically, you will be able to cope emotionally. Combat stress and fatigue by getting enough sleep, eating right, and exercising. Don't use alcohol or drugs to numb the pain or grief or lift your mood artificially. Try to find your hobbies and interests. There's comfort in routine and getting back to the activities that bring you joy and comfort and connect you closer to the ones you can help in terms with your loss and aid the grieving process. Another one is a real key important one I want to address is don't let anyone tell you how to feel, and don't tell yourself how to feel either. Your grief is your own, and no one can tell you when it's time to move on or get over it. Let yourself feel whatever you feel without embarrassment or even judgment from others. It's okay to be angry, to yell at the heavens, to cry or not to cry. It's also okay to laugh, to find moments of joy, to let go when you're ready. Plan ahead of your grief triggers. Anniversaries, holidays, and milestones can reawaken the memories and feelings of your loved one. Be prepared for an emotional wallet and know that it's completely normal. If you're sharing a holiday or life cycle event with other relatives, talk to them ahead of time about the expectations and agree on strategies to honour the person you loved. When grief doesn't go away. As time passes on, following a significant loss such as the death of a loved one, as multiple feelings of sadness, numbness, or anger to gradually ease. These and other difficult emotions can become less intense as you begin to accept the loss and start to move forward with your life. However, if you aren't feeling better over time or your grief is getting worse, it may be a sign that your grief has developed into more serious problems such as complicated grief or major depression. And this one, the complicated grief, the sadness of losing someone you love never goes away completely, but it shouldn't remain centre stage. If the pain of the loss is so constant and severe, however, that it keeps you from resuming your life, you may be suffering from a condition known as complicated grief. Complicated grief is like being stuck in an intense state of mourning. You may have trouble accepting the death long after it has occurred, or be so preoccupied with the person who died that it disrupts your daily routine and undermines your other relationships. The symptoms to look out for of complicated grief may include intense longing and yearning for your deceased loved one, intrusive thoughts or images of your loved one, denial of the death or sense of disbelief, imagining that your loved one is alive, searching for your deceased loved one in familiar places, avoiding things that remind you of your loved ones, extreme anger or bitterness towards over your loss, feeling that life is empty or meaningless. The difference between grief and depression. You gotta remember this one too. Distinguishing between grief and clinical depression isn't always easy as they share many of the same symptoms, but there are ways to tell the difference. Remember, grief can be a roller coaster. It involves a variety of wide emotions and a mix of good days and bad days. Even when you're in the middle of the grieving process, you will still have moments of pleasure or happiness. With depression, however, on the other hand, the feelings of emptiness and despair are constant. Other symptoms such as depression, not just grief, may include intense, pervasive sense of guilt, thoughts of suicide or preoccupation with dying, feelings of hopelessness or worthlessness, slow speech and body movements, inability to function at home, work or school, or wherever. I want to ask you all is what other ways can we deal with grief? So now you have identified what may have worked, which is talking and whatnot, but if I've missed out anything, comment below in this of what is entailed. Sometimes, we need to
bear in mind there are support groups around when we feel like suicide thing. Okay, the question is, can we really get past this? Yes, we can, but as I said before, grieving is difficult and will vary from person to person. Time will tell.
Grieving is difficult, acceptable, and valid. We need to be aware to the warning signs, though, when grief takes over and becomes something else, such as depression, as I said before, if there is a risk for suicide. So think about maybe tier T, to face and accept reality. E, experience and work through the emotional hurt. A, adjust to this new life. And R, reinvest in this new situation. So now the question is, now what? You may have gone through the stages and readjusted to living life differently. Does that mean grieving is finished? Not necessarily. As I said before, it will fluctuate from time to time. It's a wave of emotions. Triggers. You'll have some common triggers of the old situations or old places, anniversaries and whatnot. People, places, smells, and other senses may trigger that feel emotion for the loss or change we're dealing with. Sometimes grief just hits you like a ton of bricks, but that is sure is okay.
How do you react to grief is a real good question you might be asking. It is important to consider your own reactions. Think of the situation you have grief for and the emotions you've had with this, the things you did to cope and heal. It may be useful to call upon your experience when helping others, whilst remembering your experience is not everyone's experience of grief. As I said before, never tell someone how to grieve, only provide reassurance for their loss and guide them to make decisions that will help them grow in their recovery. There are some places that you can actually call for support groups, and that, as I said, I'll list them below. So just to recap before I end this, is grief is what results from a significant change or loss. Grief can come from anything from the death of a loved one to moving house and many other changes in our lives. Grief is unique and different for everyone, but there are common factors and feelings that has been identified in this video. As long as after whatever amount of time feels comfortable for you, you start to feel better and eventually move on with life, then your grief is normal. It's when there is a lack of recovery, however, and continuous negative feelings that we start to worry. When this happens, as I said, seek further support and advice from a medical professional. We know that talking about it helps. So obviously, a key example for a support group or what have you is Youthline here in New Zealand. When the client calls in, there is a high chance that they have already helped simply by picking up the phone. We can also help by reassuring the client in Youthline that what they are feeling is normal. It may be helpful to aid them in putting names to the feelings that they have identified and verbally identified what is going on for them. Obviously, there are some great resources and whatnot and websites that can help for further support. Even something as simple as encouraging the client to eat, run, and exercise or listen to music, something that they enjoy, may help. Okay, grief comes in many forms, all of which are acceptable and normal to the individual. Culture is very important when considering how someone may grieve. It's important to listen to the client's cues about what is expected of them and what they associate with. Although grief is something the client needs to go through themselves or just ourselves, we can provide support and reassurance. Always check for depression and do a risk assessment if necessary. If unsure, do one anyway. Know your limits and ensure your own safety and well-being first. So this is basically a real quick overview, hopefully, of how to deal with grief and loss. Give me a like for thumbs up for support, comment below. Feel free to share these videos around to family and friends. Feel free to also follow me on my social media sites that's listed in the description. Feel free to also subscribe to my channel because I'm hoping to do this on a daily, Monday to Friday, depending on my weekly schedule, regardless of it all. Feel free to also turn on the notification bell so you know when Aspie's bringing up these and more, so you can keep up to date and be available to watch these, as well as maybe supporting me as being part of the YouTube family. And all further ado, guys, thanks for support, thanks for watching, do what you love what you do. Until next time, Aspie signing out, and I'll see you again soon. Ciao for now.